I remember the exact instant the entire situation fractured. It was my sister, Skylar's, voice, sharp with pure entitlement, slicing across the dinner table. "You don't have children, so you must help us babysit the kids. That is the absolute minimum you can do for us." My parents, Arthur and Alara, immediately nodded their heads in agreement. My father's hand quickly tapped the tabletop like a judge's gavel, having already ruled decisively against my favor. I did not raise my voice in protest. I simply looked at the children, innocent, loud, utterly messy, and then directly at the smug smirk on my brother-in-law, Marcus's, face. And in that moment, I knew this house, this family dynamic, was no longer mine. It had not always been this antagonistic. My sister and I were once two halves of the same coin. When we were younger, I was the one who consistently protected her. When she got married, I gave them gifts I truly could not afford. When she started having children, I routinely sent money without ever being asked. After my father, Arthur, retired, it was me who kept the entire household financially afloat. Utility bills, groceries, necessary repairs. I quietly covered all of them, not because I was ever required to, but because I loved my parents genuinely. Because I believed family was supposed to represent something sacred. But then my sister and her husband suddenly moved in with them. They carried in boxes, and along with them, an unbearable, quiet arrogance. Suddenly, the house I had, financially held together for years, was no longer mine. It was indisputably theirs. They immediately filled the space with relentless noise, petty demands, constant complaints, and still I continued to swallow my pride until that decisive night. It began subtly, my parents always taking her side on the most trivial of matters, her husband using my father's car daily as if it were his own property. The casual, dismissive remarks, "You lack a family of your own. You cannot possibly comprehend genuine responsibility." But the absolute truth landed like a cold blade when I overheard them one evening. I had arrived home earlier than expected. Their loud laughter spilled clearly through the kitchen door. "She's pathetic," my brother-in-law, Marcus, declared dismissively. "She genuinely thinks she's helping us, but truthfully she is just our personal ATM." My sister, Skylar, giggled easily in agreement. "Do not worry. She will continue to pay. She literally has no one else in her life. She desperately needs us more than we will ever need her." I did not walk into the kitchen. I did not unleash a furious scream. I stood perfectly still, silent, absorbing every single word like a fatal poison. And in that terrifying silence, something within me irrevocably shifted. I was officially finished being their selfless lifeline. I immediately began to plan my exit, not fueled by raw fury, but by absolute precision. I meticulously reviewed every account I regularly paid, the electricity, the water, the mortgage. I calculated the exact costs required. I knew precisely how extremely fragile their perceived financial comfort truly was. Then I considered the timing. If I left in uncontrolled anger, they would immediately expect it. If I lashed out verbally, they would easily dismiss and paint me as bitter and selfish. No, I required absolute silence. I needed them to falsely believe I was still available, still obedient, still utterly chained to their needs. So I smiled through the subsequent family dinners. I carried in bags of groceries. I paid another round of critical household bills. But simultaneously, in the background, I secretly searched apartment listings, leases for a dedicated place of my own. Every time my sister Skylar shoved another unwanted responsibility onto me, every time her husband Marcus mocked me with that familiar crooked grin, I nodded calmly and I diligently waited. I found a modest apartment, nothing grand, but completely and entirely mine. I quietly signed the lease, paid the deposit. Then came the actual move. I did not announce a thing. I packed my belongings at night, box by box, storing them immediately in my car's trunk. And when the very last utility bill cycle I was responsible for ended, I walked out of that house with my final small bag. I left no written note, no verbal explanation, only absolute, profound silence. The first frantic call arrived a week later. My mother, Alara's, voice was trembling uncontrollably. "The electricity, it's been abruptly cut off. Did you accidentally forget to pay it?" I said nothing at all. I let the total silence answer the implied question for me. Then my sister, Skylar, called, screaming hysterically, "You selfish witch. You completely abandoned us and left us with nothing." I almost chuckled at her audacity. Nothing. They still had my parents' house. They still had each other. They still had their children. What they no longer had was me. And without my quiet financial support, their entire house rapidly crumbled. The essential bills piled up unpaid. The monthly mortgage payments slipped dangerously into arrears. Their fragile little world built entirely upon my silent sacrifices completely collapsed. 2 months later, she actually showed up at my new apartment door. Her husband, Marcus, lingered awkwardly behind her, his face pale, his entire demeanor sharpened by intense stress. "You ruined us," she spat venomously. "We are financially drowning. You are completely heartless." I allowed her to speak. I permitted her to vent her manufactured rage. And when her voice finally broke with exhaustion, I calmly spoke my piece. "No," I stated, my voice low, composed, surgical. "I simply ceased saving you people." Her eyes widened sharply. She comprehended the truth then. All those preceding years she truly thought I needed her. All those years she truly believed I was weak. But the cold, undeniable truth was standing directly before her. My ultimate strength was my enduring silence. My greatest power was my absolute restraint. And my newfound freedom was the sheer act of decisively cutting them loose. "You wanted me to simply babysit your children," I whispered softly. "But the harsh truth is I was actually babysitting every single one of you." Her mouth opened, then slowly closed shut. No retort, no possible defense. Only the quiet, devastating realization of what she had permanently lost. I closed the door on her that night, not with a burst of anger, but with profound, quiet peace. My new apartment is small. Yes, my dinners are often quiet, but they are entirely mine. My hard-earned money now funds my own life, not theirs. And for the very first time in years, I can fully breathe, without the enormous weight of their toxic entitlement crushing my chest. I still occasionally think about the look in her eyes, that fleeting flicker of recognition when she finally realized she had violently killed her own golden goose. That particular moment was my victory, my justice, my final revenge. They foolishly thought I was their loyal servant, but I was the essential foundation. And the second I walked away, their whole house came tumbling down. Genuine family connection does not necessitate blind sacrifice. It demands mutual respect, careful balance, and love that is unquestionably reciprocated. They offered me absolutely none of those things, so in the end, I gave them the only thing they deserved: nothing.